All right, so I'm your host for today. I'm Anderson Tseng. I am the president of the club. I've also been here at Langara for about 2 years, so I've taken most of the courses. A little bit about me. I grew up here in Vancouver. I graduated at John Oliver Secondary, if anyone knows where that is. I love taking cloud pictures. I'm a huge fan of some really niche content like Discworld novels, Vocaloid music, and Dungeons and Dragons. I love exploring Vancouver and also having new experiences. So just a brief collage of things. So for the agenda for today, I'm going to be going over basically everything that you need to know to succeed in the hackathon, any information that you might need to feel prepared, lots of stuff about your project, how to build a project and how to pitch your project. And we'll also have a Q&A segment at the end. A few disclaimers before I get started. I am only human. These slides represent my subjective experience participating in and organizing around 10 hackathons. My experience, so different strategies might work for you because we're all different. Second of all, slides will be posted on the Discord server after the workshop. And third, I'm aiming to talk for around 40 minutes. So we have a brief Q&A section at the end. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, keep them for that. So we're just going to jump straight into it. So what is a hackathon? It's kind of a big question, but I would say primarily a hackathon is a learning environment. So it is a space where you can learn by having a competition, having a project that you're building that could possibly win the competition. It's an innovation space where you're creating this project in such a short amount of time. And it's also a networking space to talk to your fellow students. We'll have a few sponsors coming in, and we'll also have some mentors, some of which are Langara alumni, and some of them also work in the industry. So why are hackathons special? And this is something that might not be clear if you're a student. Average project in the industry. For example, Langara College is migrating all our systems, the student information system, like their payroll stuff, they're migrating it to Workday. This project has been happening for at least 4 years and it's probably gonna still be happening 2 years from now when you're all graduated and moved on from Langara. Average CPSC 1030 project. You have some web dev, you have some CSS, HTML, maybe a little bit of JavaScript. It takes about 3 months. Your hackathon project is going to take 30 hours. And by then, you'll have a completed project. You can work on it after a hackathon, but at the end of the hackathon, after 30 hours, you're going to have a project. So that's what's so special about hackathons. So before we jump into going over the hackathon, I do want to ask you to decide on your goals for the hackathon. Some potential takeaways. Create a cool project for your portfolio. I think that's definitely a main reason for coming to a hackathon, building a project with your teammates, meeting new and interesting people. As mentioned before, we're projecting, not a promise, but we are expecting around 100 people to be at a hackathon, not including our mentors, our judges, as well as organizers. Learn new skills. You're here at a workshop. You're going to learn a lot of stuff today. We also have a bunch more workshops happening throughout the week. I believe there's a web dev workshop later today. There's a defang workshop, React workshop, AI workshop. So definitely visit those. Lots of stuff to learn. And also connecting with our sponsors and our judges. The judging list, the list of judges will be published closer to the hackathon. So preparing for Langara Hacks. So what is Langara Hacks? Just briefly, I kind of want to talk a bit about our event because it's something that we spent a lot of time planning. So Langara Hacks is a hackathon that's mainly for Langara students. We will have a couple of UBC SFU students from across Vancouver, but most of you are going to be Langara students. So it's organized, it's brought to life by the Computer Science Club. So just as a brief aside, the Computer Science Club is the main organization for computer science students here at Langara College. We have a small exec team if you ever be interested in joining. We do also host a lot of events after the hackathon. We'll have some panels and stuff. So after the hackathon, definitely I invite you to join us at all of our other events. So we get started with the packing list. So all the stuff that I would advise bringing to the hackathon. First of all, laptop and charger. I think this is pretty obvious. You need something to code on, even if you're planning to be a designer or someone who's going to work more on the presentation or the slides. Definitely bring a laptop, have a computer with you. Bring a charger. We will have power outlets, so you won't need to worry about that. But peripherals, so anything like a keyboard, or if you want to bring a second monitor, absolutely bring those. We should have enough table space for it. Keep in mind, it is going to be a little crowded. So if you bring like your gaming PC and then like a 27-inch monitor, you might have to like find like a corner to sit in. Some other stuff, toiletries, this is going to depend. So a lot of hackathons, and I'll talk about this later in Vancouver, are overnight. But unfortunately, we do have to comply with Langara College policies, which means that we are closing the hackathon at, I believe it's, I want to say 7 p.m. It might be 8 p.m. And then we'll be reopening it the next morning. So depending on how you feel, you might want to bring some toiletries, deodorant, maybe a toothbrush, stuff like that. Bring a reusable water bottle. Like, it pains me to say this, but stay hydrated. We will have some like juice and some stuff. But staying hydrated is going to be important because you're going to be sitting down for 2 days straight. You're going to be working. You're going to be squeezing your brain juices. So make sure you're drinking enough water. Unfortunately, it does look like it's going to be raining for Saturday and Sunday. So bring an umbrella or a raincoat or something like that. Just make sure you don't get like soaking wet on your way home on Saturday and you wake up on Sunday with a cold. We will have some snacks, but we do recommend bringing some, just so you have some to share with your team in case we do run out. So before the hackathon, I do have a checklist of stuff. Attend the workshops, which is great. You're here right now. As previously mentioned, lots of stuff going on. By coming to our workshops, if you come to 3 of the workshops, I hope you all seen this in the pre-hackathon email, but if you haven't, entering 3 workshops will give you 1 raffle ticket to win this gigantic 55-inch Samsung gaming monitor. It's 4K, 165 hertz refresh rate. It's like crazy. And you can only win this monitor if you come to 3 workshops. You 2 are late. Or you can also win an additional raffle ticket if you enter our defang workshop. So it's the only way you can win this. It's really like a crazy monitor. We'll have it on display during the hackathon. So drop by our workshops. Second of all, join Hackathon Discord. I think most of you are already there. We have lots of stuff happening. We'll be announcing all the events and stuff. The slides will be posted there. If you haven't found a team yet, Discord is going to be your place to do so. Oh, speaking of finding a team, find a team. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but a hackathon is a team activity. So you're going to be building a project with your team members. And finally, do some brainstorming for project ideas. So assembling your team, like it or not, I know many of you might have had painful experiences with group projects, but a hackathon is a team activity. We usually recommend having 3 to 4 people, so you can have up to 4 people in your team. A few common roles that you might assign people to when you're building your team might be a developer, it might be a designer, you might have someone in charge of presenting, you might have someone in charge of back end or someone in charge of front end. And also make sure you get to know your team members, because you're going to be working with them for 30 hours. You're going to be sitting in the same room for 8 hours straight. So make sure you get to know them, talk to each other, don't just sit there in silence. Another recommendation I would have is designate someone as the project lead. This might work for some groups, it might not work for others, but it can help to have someone who is in charge of keeping everyone organized. So for example, if like something's not being coded in time, then you will be making that decision to cut it or to work on something else. Brainstorming project ideas. I know this is always the hardest part of the hackathon, or it might be easy for some of you, but you are going to be building something during the hackathon, and it's going to help a lot if you come into the hackathon with an idea for something that you want to build. We will have a hackathon theme that will be announced in the opening ceremony, but it's going to be, brief disclaimer, it's going to be pretty broad. So it should be pretty reasonable to adapt the project to that theme. So you definitely can go into a hackathon without a project idea, but I definitely advise sit down with your team members like the day before, Thursday, Friday afternoon, and think of like some stuff that you'd want to build during the hackathon. Outside of that, definitely take a look at projects from SFU and UBC hackathons. All of their like project submission lists are public or on the internet. If you go search dev posts like UBC hackathons, you'll find a bunch of stuff. Definitely take a look at the project list, see what other people are building. I would also recommend work on something that's actually interesting to you because it's so much easier to get motivated. You'll know a lot more about the problem, like the project domain, if you're working on something you're actually interested in. On the technical side, I will talk about this a bit later. I know I'm saying that a lot. But decide your platform and stack based on your team skills. If your whole team is a bunch of beginners and you want to say, I want to use Firebase, I want to learn React and, throw on Tailwind, it is going to recognize that it is going to be more difficult to do. Not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be more difficult to do. So pick something that's attainable for your team members, taking into account the skills that you have on your team. Also, think about what an MVP looks like. So if you don't know, MVP stands for minimum viable product. And it's basically the minimum amount of code that you need for your project to work. So to illustrate that, basically it's the amount, for example, say you want to build a plugin that automatically translates a page to a different language, just as an example. So the minimum viable product for that would be a plugin template. And then you would want to possibly use a translation API. And then you need to replace the text on the page. And that would be your minimum viable product. So for example, if you wanted to add, other features like possibly like explain what this grammar means, that would be an additional feature, which is definitely would be great to add to your project if you have time. But focus on your minimum viable product. Make sure you're not implementing more than you have to. And also decide how to split up the work. As previously mentioned, you want to assign responsibilities to everyone, making sure that everyone has a similar level of work to do so that everyone's staying productive during the hackathon. So what's your hackathon experience going to look like? We have the schedule here. Has everyone seen the schedule? Yes, seeing some nods, seeing some no's. Okay. So this is the hackathon schedule. It's going to be a 2-day hackathon running from Saturday to Sunday. We're in the T gallery in the T building for all that time. We're going to start at 7:30 to 8:30 with check-in. We'll have a short opening ceremony from 8:30 to 9, and then you can get straight into your coding time. We'll have a short mini game. Mini games are optional. You don't have to join them, but we do have some prizes for joining, and they will be fun. So if you have some spare time, consider joining. We'll have lunch at 12 to 1, and we'll have another coding block. We have a few more mini games in the evening. They will be announced tomorrow, possibly Friday. Campus is going to close at 7 p.m. So you can either head home. There are some businesses within walking distance if you want to just keep working together. I believe there's like Tim Hortons on Main, Fraser on, Brecca on Fraser. I think like McDonald's and Wendy's or like Marine Drive are also open. So if you still want to keep working on stuff, you do have some options. Sunday morning, we'll have check-in 7:30 to 8-ish. We'll have some breakfast if you want to come in that early. Otherwise, it's completely fine to come in like 9 or 10 to finish up your project. We'll have another brief mini game, and then we'll have lunch from 1 to 2. I believe that's been moved back to 2 p.m. This might be a bit outdated. So after that, you'll have a very limited window to finish your project. And then we'll have a sponsored workshop from DFANG. So if you don't know, DFANG is it's a startup it's based around Vancouver. And basically what their product is it's taking your project, so any project that you make, and it's going to help you to put it on the cloud. So for example, currently what they do is they're using Amazon Web Services. And basically all you have to do is you take your project, you package it into something called a Docker Compose. You just take that, you upload it to your services, and they will just put it on the cloud for you. So to handle, you won't have to set up the Amazon Web Services account and then turn on, all these services and then make sure you're not spending too much money on like what's turned on, what's turned off. They'll handle all of that for you. So we'll have a workshop during the hackathon for you to learn how to do that. And of course, we have a workshop on Thursday. That's for another raffle ticket. And finally, from 3 to 5, we will have judging and presentations. And finally, after that, we will have the closing ceremonies. So let's talk about the hackathon experience. So the most important thing is going to be budgeting your time. As you know, hackathon is a really short time for you to work on your project. You have 2 days, and there's not even 2 full days. So you have approximately 29 hours between the start of the opening ceremony and the submission deadline. So here's some advice for how I would break down that time. It's not a concrete rule. It might vary depending on your team, but it's a rough outline. So you might want to start with brainstorming your project, making sure that everyone's on the same page, and then planning your project, figuring out what you need to implement. If you're using a translation API, maybe you want to use the Google Translate API or some like AI companies API, figuring out what frameworks you want to use, or figuring out what technologies you want to use, setting up your GitHub repository, stuff like that. And then you're going to be spending the most of your time on building, programming, making your project, fixing bugs, and all that stuff. I didn't put it on here, but join our mini games. They'll be fun. And there's prizes. Definitely make sure to budget enough time for preparing your project demo. And I see this happen a lot because you're coding, right? And you're focused on your project. You want to make sure that you implement all the features that you want to. And then it's like 30 minutes before the project submission and you don't have slides, you don't have a script or anything. So it helps to designate someone to work on preparing that demo, possibly making slides. Slides are optional, but I do recommend making them. And of course, budget some time for meals, sleep, hygiene, decompression. I know like some people are just gonna pull an all-nighter and then like have a 2-hour nap and drink like 5 Red Bulls. You can do that. No one is stopping you, but I do recommend getting some sleep and being like awake for the presentation on Sunday. Also, note that if you have 4 team members, you do have 116 hours instead of 29. So the more team members you have, the more stuff you can accomplish. Cool. Let's talk about implementing your project. This is going to vary a lot depending on what stack you use, what technologies you have, how ambitious your project is going to be. This is a brief outline. Starting off, use a quick start template if there is one, especially for like more complicated stuff where you're setting up like a node server or you have like a bunch of dependencies. Just find a quick start template off the internet. That's completely fine. That just helps you get started a lot quicker, and then you don't have to put on all the boilerplate and stuff like that. A big thing is getting unstuck. So I think every single hackathon I've been to, there's always this like game stopper bug that's like, you stare at it, you look at your code, and you're trying to figure out why is this happening. So you have lots of solutions, lots of ways to deal with it. First of all, ask the internet. I know it's obvious, but Google the error, go to Stack Overflow, see what like other people have found, because chances are you're not the first person to have had that error. It's not considered cheating. That's completely fine. Second of all, ChatGPT, obvious. There are lots of other tools out there that might be a bit faster. I know there's the limit on whatever GPT-O. I will note GPT is not perfect. And if you code your entire project with ChatGPT and you just say, code me a project that lets me identify what type of flower this is when I take a picture, and you just throw that into ChatGPT and you copy paste the code, we are not going to stop you from doing that, but also consider it defeats the point, right? It's like a hackathon is where you're learning, and if you just copy paste the code from ChatGPT, you don't look at it, you don't modify and just throw it into your VS Code. It's not a great use of time. So make sure you know what your code is doing. Look at it, make comments where necessary. If you have a major bug with your code and you ask a mentor or you ask someone for help, and then like they ask you to explain what your code is doing, and then you have no clue because you use ChatGPT, we can't help you. And of course, our mentors. So we are going to have some mentors roaming around. As previously mentioned, some are Langara alumni, some are in the industry. All of them are super qualified to help you. If they don't have, like, if you're using something like super specific, like, I don't know, like Go, or like you're coding a like email client or something, they might, get another mentor to help you. But for most stuff, basic web development, Python, Java, stuff like that, they can totally help you with any bugs, any issues you're having. If you're struggling to figure out what to work on, or you have any other issues, go talk to a mentor. They should be pretty obvious. They'll be walking around the room. And definitely ask your teammates for help. Like if you're sitting there in silence, it's not ideal. And if you have someone else on your team who's like taking a break or something, ask them to take a look at the code. You have concepts like pair programming, where you might have two people working on the code at once, or maybe they'll just like copy the code and look out on their machine, but your teammates are there to help you. So ask them. Just gonna take a brief water break. Okay, looks like I already talked about this. Common pitfalls. So I'm sure all of you have taken 1150. You've all had 1150 labs, or maybe even 1160 labs. And I'm sure everyone can emphasize with being stuck on a lab for 6 hours. Okay, so maybe some of you are like programming gods, but you are going to get stuck, as previously mentioned. There's lots of issues that can pop up during the hackathon, lots of common pitfalls I see that doesn't mean that your group is bad or that you're bad at communicating, but it's when you're in a stressful environment with a very limited amount of time. These are some of the top stuff that I see like happening in hackathon groups, and there are like reasonably easy fixes to get through most of them. So first of all, lack of communication. Again, it's one of those things that seems obvious when you say it out loud, but if you have one person on your team implementing a feature, and then you have someone else waiting for that feature, and then they finish the feature, and then this person realizes that it's actually something completely different. Or maybe you have two people and they're implementing the same thing at the same time because you haven't properly communicated that this person's going to work on this. And then, it's really easy to get confusion and a lot of chaos happening. So make sure you're talking with your team members. If you're going to start working on a feature, tell the people in your team, you're going to be working on that feature. Tell people, if you're getting stuck, if you're having challenges with something, talk to your teammates, even if they have headphones on, shoot them a Discord message, stuff like that. Not asking for help when you need it. As previously mentioned, yeah, you're going to have bugs. You're going to have all sorts of issues that crop up. Get some help. Do it. Yeah, so many resources available to you. Ask your teammates, ask your mentors, maybe ask another team. Maybe they have someone who can help. Worst thing to do is getting stuck on a bug for like 2 or 3 hours, and you're just tearing your hair out because you can't figure out what's going wrong. And third of all, set an achievable scope, which is going to be hard. Because I remember my first few hackathons, I had like amazing like goals. I'd say I'm going to create a Discord bot, and it's going to have these cool features. It's going to like calculate like equations. It's going to help you with your like math problems. And you have to be realistic and make sure that you actually set achievable goals for yourself. So cut out whatever is necessary for a minimum viable product, and don't be too ambitious. Like obviously be ambitious. I totally encourage you to like set out these like insane project goals for a project, but make sure you're realistic with it. Don't set out something that you know that you aren't going to be able to do. Imposter syndrome. I know I have heard from people that, especially if this is your first hackathon, if you might be new to Langara or new to computer science, that you don't really feel ready for the hackathon. I think that's a feeling a lot of people have, even like people who haven't applied. There's people generally here at Langara, especially as a transfer school. So it's going to be really easy to look at other projects, other people building. They're going to have a web framework with full backends, and they're going to be like integrating AI dynamically into their project. That's awesome for them. Totally great. But keep in mind that a lot of them are going to have been programming for years and years. Like they might be in like a completely different program. They might even have a bachelor's degree. Or so the only person you can compare yourself to is yourself, because that's the only benchmark that you can use. So definitely recognize that there's a long road ahead, lots of stuff to learn, but don't try not to feel intimidated, because it is a beginner-friendly hackathon. We do want you to be here to learn new skills. Again, a couple of tips for dealing with that. Set achievable goals. Don't, definitely look at other projects. So I'll talk about pitching in a little bit, but definitely look at other projects, see what they're doing, how they did it, but make sure you set realistic goals. I know I repeated that 5 times, but it's important. Next up, pitching your project. So this is going to be the most important part of the hackathon, because you've been working on this project for 29 hours, essentially 30 hours, and it all comes down to the 4 minutes you have on stage. So this year we are doing open judging. As if anyone was here last year, we had judging rooms where you'd go in and then you speak to your judges directly. This year we're doing open judging. So that means we'll have a stage. You're going to come up and you're going to talk to not only the judges, but also everyone who's participating in the hackathon. So I do have a list of things that I recommend keeping in mind for your presentation. First of all, pitch your project as a solution to a problem. This is so important for so many reasons. For example, instead of saying, this project automatically curates your resume to better fit employers, and then talk about a project, a better way to do it would be to say, I am a computer science student and I'm looking for a job in the industry and I'm having a really hard time. A lot of the companies out there are using something called an applicant tracking system that can unfairly filter your resume. That is why I built a project that can automatically curate my resume to better fit a job posting. You see, like the second one is like so much better, because you're sharing some context, you're sharing information about your personal struggles, and that really helps make the judges and the audience emphasize with your project. By the way, that's a real project that Richard and I and a bunch of 2 other people did for like a UBC hackathon. Script. I think that's pretty straightforward. If you've done a group project, you want a script, you want an outline, you want to have an idea of what you're saying on the stage. It's pretty important to have that if you are interested in being competitive. Slides, again, optional. Some groups, some projects might do better with slides. It might not be as necessary for others, but an image is worth 1,000 words, and we will let you have slides. So if you have time, if you have the energy for it, definitely recommend making some basic slides. Record a backup demo. This is going to depend, but if you have a complicated project and you've been having like issues with it, highly recommend film a backup video of it, of the demo working. And then that way, if you get on stage and you pull out your laptop, plug it in, and then it just explodes on you, it refuses to work, Then you can pull up this video and you can show it to your judges. You can actually point out what's happening as opposed to just having a demo that's not working. And then we as the organizers feel bad because we have a time limit. We have to get you off the stage in order to have everyone judged in time. And then if you don't have the opportunity to do that, then we feel bad. So if you have a complicated project that's like on the verge of working, film a demo. It takes 5 minutes, just do it. And finally, be confident. Hard to say, I know, but confidence is key. It helps so much in your project to just be out there, make hand gestures, look at your judges, look at your audience, be confident about your project because you've worked hard on it, and be confident about it. So, big slide, lots of words. DevPost. So DevPost is this really cool website that basically every single hackathon in like the world uses. So basically what DevPost does, it acts as a submission tracker for the hackathon. So when you're close to the end of the hackathon, you can go to our hackathon DevPost, which will be announced later. You can go there, you can join the hackathon, and then you can create a project on it. And from there, you can upload pictures of your code, a description of it, links to a working demo. You can use this as a portfolio, as your project for your project. It gives you a website that you can just link to that contains all the information about the project. You can also use it to find upcoming hackathons. Like in addition to in-person hackathons, there's tons of online hackathons happening everywhere that sometimes have really cool prizes. So if you're interested in hackathons, definitely take a look at that. What's important for Langara Hacks is that you have to submit a project to be eligible for prizes. So it won't take long, probably like 5 to 10 minutes, but make sure you go to the DevPost and you create a project and you add your teammates. You also need to attach your code. So if that looks like a GitHub repository, if that looks like a zip file or like a link to Google Drive, that's okay. But our mentors can help you with setting up GitHub if you haven't already. If you do not submit a project on DevPost, you'll not be put on the judging list. This is just for us as organizers because we need to create a list of everyone that's going to be on stage. So make sure you do this before the end of the hackathon. We will be announcing it, so don't stress out about it. How your project is judged. So as previously mentioned, we have about 4 minutes on the stage for judging. That is going to vary a bit depending on how many teams we have, but aim for 4 minutes. So my recommendation, spend the first 2 minutes on your pitch, and then spend 2 minutes on your demo. If you finish early, which is entirely possible, the judges will ask you questions. So what should you do during your demo? Because you have 4 minutes, you have 240 seconds to talk about what you've done in the last 29 hours. So rough outline for you. Introductions, make sure you introduce yourself. You want to be known, or maybe you don't, but I still recommend introducing yourself. State the problem. It adds so much depth and like emotional, not to like it helps your project. It helps your project a lot if you state it as a solution to a problem. And then explain your solution to a problem. And also make sure that you include whatever languages, frameworks, and tools you used. And finally, demonstrate your project in front of the judges. Judging criteria. So your project is going to be judged on 4 criteria. These are not equally weighted, so keep that in mind. First off is the idea. Does your proposal address the theme and does it solve a problem? Second of all, implementation. How well is the project implemented? What tools do you use to build your project? This is, again, it is a beginner-friendly hackathon, but a project that uses, React, Tailwind, it's using like APIs, it has a front end, it has a back end, that is going to score a bit higher on implementation versus, a basic HTML page with a little bit of JavaScript. Design, does your project look nice? Is the interface well designed? I know it's a hackathon. It's like CSS, your styling for a web page is going to go by the wayside, but it isn't difficult to add a little bit of styling to your buttons, to the layout of your page. It helps so much for your project, not only for the judging, but also if you're showing the project to someone else, maybe even a potential employer. So that's why design is its whole criteria. And finally, the presentation. Is it clear? Is it well prepared? Is it engaging? Does it make a good case for the project? And this is pretty much an overall score. So it's a little things that help. If you have slides, if you clearly have a script and the judges look at you and you look confident, you're speaking about your project in a really engaging way, that's what that criteria is for. So that's pretty much wraps up all I have to say. I have a few closing notes. Other hackathons. There is a surprising amount of hackathons happening in Vancouver. You have lots of stuff coming up. If if you're finished with this hackathon and you feel like I want to do more of these, there's quite a few happening. So NW Plus at UBC is a club. They do 3 hackathons a year. There's going to be Hack Camp in November, which is beginner focused. NW Hacks in January is their main hackathon, and there's also Command F in March for underrepresented genders in tech. Over at SFU, there's SFU Surge. They have Storm Hacks, which is actually this October. So applications close September 22nd. So if you'd be interested in applying for that, definitely go for it. SFU Software Systems Society, I'm missing an S. There's another S in there somewhere. They have an annual hackathon in March, and all of these are open to all Langara students. You are going to have to apply. So I recommend applying as early as possible. Most of these are going to be announced on Instagram, possibly LinkedIn. Some of them do have Discord servers. So apply early. Make sure you actually write out a reasonable response, because they do look at them. And after the hackathon, lots of stuff you can do, because you'll be finished with the hackathon, but there's lots of stuff that I would recommend doing afterwards. So make sure to document your project. DevPost is a really great way to do that. It gives you a page. You can upload images, you can put links to it, you can write a bunch of text about your project. Write a blog post, LinkedIn post. Definitely recommend a LinkedIn post. It just gives you so much visibility when people are looking at your LinkedIn page. Stay in touch with teammates and the people you meet, because it's a small school. You see each other. Drop your LinkedIn on Discord. We have an introductions channel, LinkedIn channel. Drop your LinkedIn there. Let's stay connected, because a lot of people, when you move on from Langara, everyone goes somewhere different. Some people go find a job, some people go to SVU, some people go to UBC. One thing, as a president, not as part of the hackathon, but I do want to build a better community of Langara alumni. So connect with each other on LinkedIn and join us at club events, because we have a lot of cool stuff coming up. We have a panel on hiring with the co-op department, I believe right after hackathon. It's Tuesday. We'll have a transfer panel about transferring to SFU and UBC with Langara alumni in, I believe, November. We're going to have some socials, lots of cool stuff. So stay connected, follow our Instagram, join our Discord. And that concludes this workshop. How are we doing on time? Okay, 10 minutes. I have some brief Q&A time allotted. If you'd like to ask any questions. Yes, Carnbeer. So, I believe that That's a good question. I don't know if I'm allowed to say. I mean, yeah, I can say it's not secret. We are gonna have food, so don't bring lunch. I believe first day we are having Steve's Poke for lunch. We spent a lot of money on it, so you better show up to the hackathon. Every person that doesn't show up means that we're gonna have a spare bowl of Poke that we're just gonna have to throw away. So show up. For dinner, I believe it is pizza. And then on lunch for the second day, I think we're looking at croissants from Costco. So
And then like it will be dinner on the second day.
no dinner. Lots of restaurants on Main, Fraser, lots of options for you. But we're not serving dinner on
How
Sunday.
about for breakfast?
Breakfast, I think we'll just have like muffins or something. So definitely, if you want to eat breakfast at home, go for it. But we do have food. Mhm. Sorry, can you say that a bit louder?
When was your first hackathon experience?
Oh God, I actually had that in my script. Let me just go back to it. Um, the first hackathon I went to, it was some crazy. It was like I think I was in like grade 11 or something. It might have been grade 12. It was the middle of COVID, so it's completely online. Like I had no idea what was happening. I don't even know like why I signed up. I must have just been like looking to it. I probably like, just looked at it, saw cool prizes. I'm gonna sign up for this. And like I did find a team with just like a bunch of random people on the internet. And then like by day two, we all like completely ran out of motivation. It's just because it was online, like there's a Discord server, but it's quiet. Everyone's on, all my teammates were like in different parts of the world. I think some of them were like from the States. So like it was it was chaotic, but that's not going to happen to you because you have so many resources. You're going to have finish your project, you have mentors, you have teammates, you're going to have people who can help you. So that was my first hackathon experience. Yeah,
What is the theme of the hackathon this year?
it will be announced at the opening ceremony. Yes. Last year's hackathon, I believe, was social / connectivity. Yeah, it might have been community, social and community. So that was last year's theme. So it is pretty broad. Yeah. We would like you to, but you don't have to if you don't want to. Yes.
Is it possible to attend the next coming workshop online?
We will, the workshops are being recorded. Hey, they will be recorded, so you can go and watch them. They'll probably be posted on YouTube. But you won't be like checked in for like the raffle or anything like that. Right. Last chance for questions.
For everyone that arrived during the presentation, can you please come see me? I will check you in.
All right.
Just to make sure that you guys have credit for coming to this workshop.
And I think that concludes everything I want to talk about. So thank you for dropping by.